Good morning. It's nice to see you all. I'm remembering those days when I used to need to know every word that I was going to say. I wrote down my talks and I was very precise about how I wanted to express myself. It's not true right now. I believe that whatever I say will be just the right thing to say. And if I forget certain things, that's okay. And if I say other things that I wonder why I said, that's okay too. So, of all the things that I want and think about saying, talking about, I want to talk about dying, how hard dying is. It's a physical act that the body must undergo, with or without the occupant's permission. And in Dave's case, it really took a long time, or not long at all, depending on how close we were. The 11 days in the hospital was really agonizing. They didn't know what was, well, they treated the things they could treat, and they got rid of the UTI and they got rid of the pneumonia. But basically, Dave was really ill. He couldn't really breathe. His lungs were really not working well. And he couldn't swallow. So you can't live long if you're not eating or breathing. But Dave tried. And he was very compliant with all the people who came into the room with him and tried to help. And the rehab people, I mean, it was just endless, the number of people who came in trying to do something, because they just don't want to let you die. They can't let you die. It's a failure on their part. The nurses, of course, were much more caring, but the decisions aren't theirs. They just follow the orders of the doctor. So finally, after the 9th day, a pulmonologist came in and kind of wouldn't even look at us, kind of looked down and hunched over, and he finally said, "I don't know what's wrong with you." He said, "The only way I could know would be to do a lung biopsy, which you wouldn't survive." So that was my cue to say, "Hey, can we go home now? Can we go home with hospice?" And it still took 2 days. But when Dave did come home, he was in this room, as you know or may not know. It was just a week ago. We were getting ready to be on the Daily Online and listen to Charlotte's talk. And suddenly I looked over and he wasn't there. Or actually, it wasn't like that. It was, I knew suddenly he wasn't there, just a few minutes before 9. I pulled off the sheet and lifted his t-shirt and listened, put my head right on his chest. And there was no sound. And once I turned off the oxygen compressor, there was no breath either. It was a surprise and not a surprise. It was startling and not startling. I didn't know what to do, but I did know what to do. When my mother died in the nursing home, where we had put her for the last month of her life, though of course we didn't know that, her favorite nurse and mine too came in and asked me if I wanted to bathe my mother. I said, "Oh yes, I do." And so I had that experience, and that's what I wanted to do with Dave. I wanted to bathe his body. It was a very loving act. His feet were stone cold, but his chest was still warm. So slowly, I bathed him. We hadn't had children, so I didn't really know how to bathe a body not my own. But it came naturally. I was worried that when the washcloth was damp, I was worried that he would be cold as the air evaporated the moisture, but then I realized he wouldn't be any colder than he was. So when I finished that, I was finished. I had done the last act. I could for him. So I called the hospice people and they called the mortuary. Mm. So then I think I want to talk about the cremation. That was yesterday. I had sat through 2 cremations, one of my best friend, Barbara, in the year 2000. That's how I remember it. She hadn't wanted to party on New Year's Eve, and it was inconceivable. And suddenly she died. And I had sat vigil for my sister's body as it was cremated. So I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted and what it would be like for Dave. And of course, it wasn't anything like that. There was no place to sit and be with the body as it was burned. They allowed me to stand in the doorway as they pushed the cardboard casket into the oven. I could see all the way in the back the flames. And then they pushed his box in and it got stuck on the door. Just a human thing, just getting a little stuck. And then he was in. And I really wanted to stay there and just stand there. So I took my warrior pose and I just stood there in the doorway like no one could come in, no one could go out. But after a while, it seemed foolish. Everyone had their job to do, and I didn't need to be there. So I took a walk around the cemetery grounds where Dave and I had walked many times before. It's not far from our house. It's on a very steep hillside that overlooks the bay, San Francisco, Alcatraz, the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a lovely place, but very steep, hard to walk. And I had not worn my walking shoes. But I walked around and found a little path that I had never known about, kind of a disused part of the cemetery which had not been transformed into burial sites yet. And it was like wandering in a place that I knew and didn't know. And it was the kind of walk Dave and I liked a lot. Something known but not known. So I walked all the way up, being extremely careful because I am not to fall. I must not fall. So I just walked very carefully and got to the top and had the view. And it was about 2 hours from the time they had started. And they had told me it might take 3 to 4 hours. And I realized I didn't need to wander around for 4 hours. So I walked back down, carefully down the hill, and found myself standing behind the building where the retort was. The retort is what they burn the bodies in. And it had some very large pipes sticking up to vent, I suppose, to vent the heat and the fumes, whatever. But where I happened to be, not necessarily consciously, but not unconsciously either, was right at the top of where the pipes came into the air. And it was the cold, kind of a cold Bay Area day, which we have a lot of in the summer. So the air coming towards me was quite cool, quite customary. And then once in a while, I felt the slightest bit of warmth on my face. And I thought, oh, it might be Dave. A little brush on the cheek. I thought I could be imagining it or not. It didn't matter. But I was done then. And I could go home and see what was next. And wouldn't you know, it's 10 minutes. Does this person know how to give a 10-minute talk? She does. And she'll be here next week too, and probably every other day that's possible. I'm really glad to see you all. Thank you for coming.